It's Thursday, 11 o'clock. It's time for this week's watch drop. This week's drop, we have a perpetual calendar face-off between 2/3 of the Holy Trinity, a slightly different and more vintage take on the perpetual calendar. We touched on it last week. You may even spot a different box to my side. We'll get into that later. And then we'll move on to a watch that completely changed my mind about full gold pieces. To kick off this week, we have two precious metal perpetual calendars from Vacheron Constantin and Audemars Piguet. The Vacheron Constantin overseas perpetual calendar in white gold and the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak in pink gold, both full perpetual calendars and both beautiful. We're going to start with the overseas. This in full white gold, ultra thin as well. It has a weight to it, whilst at the same time, being that ultra thin, it's not as bulky as you might expect or have felt from other brands. You'll immediately spot the blue dial. It's a really rich and complex blue, moving from lighter shades to darker. Every single part of this just nods to something within the brand. The complications they make, the dials they produce, even the bracelet itself is a nod to the Maltese cross, as with the bezel that just has this unique feel in comparison to the other sports watches that are out there. You have the simple things of the ability to change the bracelet to a rubber, to a leather, all that come with it. And again, with those details that Vacheron put in there, it's one of the easiest interchangeable systems that any brand has come up with. Last week, we spoke about what separates a good perpetual calendar from an iconic perpetual calendar, and it's the balance. And Vacheron nails it. There's a simplicity to it whilst having all the information. You've got the moon phase perfectly positioned at the bottom, the dials balanced around the side and the top, and somehow, with the amount of information present on it, it doesn't feel cluttered. What really impresses me about this watch is not just the watch itself, but the ingenuity behind making it an ultra thin. Coming in at just 8.1 millimeters, I don't think we realize how impressive that is when you consider how complex a perpetual calendar is. You have hundreds of pieces all working together to give all of this information, and somehow, mechanically, they've managed to fit that into 8.1 millimeters. The movement itself is going to be so much thinner than that. You can really understand why this has become an icon and why Vacheron are part of that trinity. Although this is full precious metal, a sports watch, there is still something about it that flies under the radar. But now it's time to move on to something completely different. Next, we have a watch that on paper seems like it should be about the same. But the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar in pink gold could not feel more different. Whilst I just said the overseas is understated, this is the opposite. This is in your face, and that's exactly what it's meant to be. You've got that full pink gold case and bracelet with brushed finishing, polished bevels, and then moving into this incredible grand tapisserie dial. Also in blue, but this time slightly more matte, rich tone to it. Again, the layout is more complex than the overseas, but that suits what this watch is about. Let's talk about the differences. You have the same information. It is still a perpetual calendar, but Audemars Piguet have decided to add in a week indicator around the chapter ring instead of a seconds track. Something about that adding more information to an already complex piece. Vacheron was all about refining that information, and Audemars Piguet is, with this particular watch, more about adding more information, more about making this a real statement piece. Because if you're going to have a full pink gold watch, might as well be a statement. Moving on to the rest of the watch, you have that famous Royal Oak bracelet that integrates into the lugs that sharply slope down. Though it is a big watch and it's designed to be a big watch, the way those lugs have been designed means the way it fits on the wrist doesn't take as much real estate as you'd expect. The next thing you'll notice, in opposition to the overseas where their entire intention was to make it thin, AP were not focusing on that at all. This is meant to be thicker. It's meant to be in your face. And that's exactly what it does. And you really feel that when you pick it up. On the wrist, you can feel it's there. That's how it's meant to be. But as you turn your wrist, you see the glimpses of what made this design so different. The complete brushing, but over those center links, as you turn it, you see the chamfers on the edges. There is so much detail here and so much that will go unnoticed, but the watch certainly won't. Something really special from AP, and the combination of the two, so similar yet wildly different. So those two are very modern interpretations of what perpetual calendars can be. But historically, this was a complication for pocket watches and then dress watches. And that's what we have next, is one of the most classic perpetual calendars from Audemars Piguet. Tim touched on this last week. This is an edition of 70 that was created for the 700th anniversary of the Swiss Confederation, and it's made in full platinum, and it really is an incredible watch. Paired with the exotic leather strap, this is a dress watch like it was originally intended. But what's brilliant about these watches, the neo-vintage and the classic pieces, is that nowadays you can put on a suede strap, you can put on a cuff, and you can dress it down that little bit, and no one will know you're wearing that bit of high horology on your wrist. It's very much the classic perpetual calendar layout, exactly what you would expect, yet somehow they've retained so much white space and added in details like the recessed subdials that just mean you can keep looking at it and keep finding something else to enjoy. And last week, Tim mentioned that this comes with an incredibly special box set, and it is rare for us to see something this complete from this era. So let's have a look. So the first thing that stands out about this box is this incredible emerald green lacquer finish, that iconic AP green. And then from the little leather pouch, you can bring out the key, and there is something stupidly satisfying about unlocking your watch box. When you open it up, it is all about the details. To start, you get this soft leather protective pad that goes over the watch. And when you remove that, everything is form fitted and the watch is lying there beautifully with the corrector just above it and a plaque that commemorates the anniversary of 700 years of the Swiss Confederation. Even the pusher is decorated, and you can tell that no expense was spared here. In an age where so many boxes are the same for every watch a brand makes, it's really lovely to see a box that is just dedicated to that one single reference. They really wanted this to be special. They really wanted it to stay as a set. When you then pick up the certificate for the limited edition, you can just untie the bow with the ribbon on the side, and it has a little certificate that states when it was bought, what number it is. But again, it's a detail that wasn't necessary, but it is wanted. Box and papers is a somewhat contentious subject. It's debatable how much value each part adds to a watch, but with something as collectible and special as this, it adds everything. Having a full set is exactly what you want for this anniversary edition, one of 70 made platinum Quantième Perpetual from Audemars Piguet. We're so happy to have this here, and I know whoever picks this up is going to have so much joy when they unbox it. The next watch, when it came in, made me feel like a child again. This is the watch that changed my mind about full gold pieces. I remember when it was first launched, and I remember when I first tried it on. I'd always been simple in my taste, and then I suddenly imagined myself wearing the Vacheron 222. This is a full gold example of the Vacheron 222, which was created for the 222nd anniversary in 1977. Originally designed by Jörg Heisig for Vacheron Constantin, the 222 was then created by some of the greatest people in watchmaking. You had a dial likely from Stern Creations, now the family that own Patek Philippe. You had a bracelet created by Gay Frères, who then went on to be bought by Rolex. And you had the movement that was the iconic 920 movement, the base caliber for all of the perpetuals that we've looked at today when they were first introduced. Every single part of this watch, every single detail was so specifically added in. This really is a greatest hits of watch construction from that era. It's full yellow gold and it doesn't feel over the top. The integrated sports models we know and love today all rely on this geometric form, quite sharp lines. Somehow it's geometric whilst being more fluid in its design. And I think a lot of that is down to the shape of these links, the brush finish, the overall tonneau shape of the case. There's something about the overall design, and especially the bracelet, that feels like someone designed it in the 70s, imagining what watches would look like in the future. Focusing on the dial, it is incredibly simple, but it's tribute to the origin of the watch, where it did have that very simplistic design to it as well. But as you catch the light, you'll see the gold applied indices, the gold around the date window, the Maltese cross above the Vacheron Constantin logo, and even the hands that match the battens in a way that I've never really seen before. It goes to show that simplicity can still be a statement piece. Putting on a full yellow gold watch, I feel like it should have the same statement factor as the Royal Oak, and yet somehow that slimmer profile and that fluid design means that it doesn't feel over the top. It feels like something I could wear every day. It fits perfectly under the cuff, and I'll always be happy looking at it. This is a really, really special watch to have in, and one that I'm going to be incredibly sad to see go. So that's this week's drop. Over 70 watches hitting the site, and we've only managed to touch on 4 of them. We have so many special watches on the table. It includes an F. Pigeon Elegant. We've got the AP Skeleton we talked about last week, a Star Wheel, an Hermes Hodinkee edition 5226 from Patek. There's something for everyone. Go hit the site and we'll see you next week.